And welcome back, everyone. U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona is in town today to visit a local school and participate in an education roundtable event. But we're quite fortunate as he has stopped by our studios this morning for a discussion just as students get back to class for the school year. Mr. Secretary, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Bob.
Beginning of the school year, what is the biggest challenge right now? Is it school safety? Is it teacher shortages? Is it something else?
You know, there's across the country, 65 million students are walking back into the schools or walking for the first time into a school.
Yeah.
Such a moment of opportunity, relationships being formed. There's so much positive. So to me, the challenge is ensuring that we focus on that. There's so many different things that create tensions, and yes, school safety is obviously the priority for us as educators, but ensuring our students are not only caught up, but surpass the levels of achievement that they had before the pandemic. But for me, it's really an opportunity to really promote the opportunity, the hope that a new school year provides.
Now, see, I can tell by the look on your face that is a real positive feeling that you have, and I think a lot of parents feel that, a lot of kids feel that as they go back. So let's maybe start there instead. What's the thing you're most hopeful about in the education system right now?
Look, I'm a dad. I approach this job as a dad first.
Okay.
I'm an educator, former fourth grade teacher. For me, the beginning of the school year gives us an opportunity as educators, as parents, to really give our students doors to open. Let them see the talents, the gifts that they have, help them set goals and achieve those goals. So there's so much opportunity for students. My daughter's a senior in high school. So throughout the experience, I saw her grow into who she is. This year, our educators, our parents are going to work together to make sure every child sees their potential and reaches it.
Let's circle back to school safety a little bit, because if kids don't feel safe, achieving those things is going to be nearly impossible. And whether it's new metal detectors in some schools, or in some districts, teachers now having the ability to carry guns in certain schools, where do you stand on the issue of school safety?
You know, when I was a school principal, nothing occupied my mind more than making sure that the students and staff that I serve are safe, are protected. So we at the federal level provided $2 billion in the bipartisan Safer Communities Act to make sure schools have the resources that they need so their school safety plans could be adequate, that they have enough resources to provide mental health supports for students that are dealing with trauma or have experienced trauma. So for me, it's making sure children have the resources that they need if they're feeling anxiety, if they're feeling unsafe, but also ensuring that the school safety plans are communicated well with families and communities, and they're executed well as well. That's important.
Where do you stand on the idea of staff with some training carrying guns in schools?
Yeah, I would prefer to have those dollars to help our children learn how to read and not arm our teachers. Our teachers have had so much already put on their shoulders and are expected to do all those things. I want my teachers to instead of learning how to shoot a weapon, to learn how to teach reading to a student who's 2 years behind. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't support safety. I do support safety, and I worked my whole career to ensure school safety, district safety. I think that's better left to law enforcement and to making sure that we use practical strategies to keep our schools safe by ensuring our doors are locked, that we have an entry system where people have to sign in. And if there is community violence that spills into the schools, then there has to be a law enforcement presence in the community that prevents that.
Well, let's talk about that reading, writing, and arithmetic a little bit since we went there. We know pandemic shutdowns really put us behind, put kids behind. How much more catching up do we have to do, and how much further can we go?
You know, I'm proud here that the Department of Education in Ohio teamed up to get some tutoring, varsity tutoring, into our schools and making sure that they're focusing on the gaps that were worsened with the pandemic. But I'm going to be very frank with you, Bob. Before the pandemic, the reading and math scores was nothing to brag about. Yeah. We have to raise the bar. We have a plan to do that, to support states, to provide funding, to make sure that literacy and numeracy, STEM, are provided at a higher level, make sure that we have highly qualified teachers in our classrooms, because an investment in our teaching profession is an investment in our students. So we have a Raise the Bar plan. You can check it out on ed.gov. Literacy and numeracy, We have to focus on that. We could talk about career pathways all we want, but if our kids are not reading, and if they can't perform basic levels of math, they're not going to get there. So I'm proud of what they're doing here in Ohio. I do think across the country we need to invest more in making sure we have a highly qualified teacher, high quality standards, and additional time after the school hours. So maybe it's after school programming or year-round schooling for students that are underperforming consistently. We have an opportunity to invest in our kids, and that's an investment in our country as well.
I heard a wise man once say, first you learn to read, then you read to learn.
Right.
And I think that probably is just about right. You mentioned the teachers, though. We don't have enough of them.
We don't.
We have shortages right here in our community. I know it's a problem all across the country. So how do we get those teachers in the buildings so we make sure those kids are getting the education they need?
You know, and again, we have a strategy in our Raise the Bar plan that talks about that. But first things first, let's show respect to the profession. I think in this country, a teacher shortage issue is a symptom of a teacher respect issue. We have to respect our educators and really value what they bring to the table and not use them as pawns in political back and forth. And number two, look, we need to pay teachers a competitive salary. In Ohio, teachers start at $39,000 a year. Many teachers need a master's degree. So you can't even pay your student loans with $39,000 a year. So I think we need to be serious about, are we compensating our professionals the way they should be compensated? Is it competitive? And if it's not, then we have to adjust that to make sure that we're attracting educators that are going to, again, invest in our students. We could talk about tutoring all day. But if the core teacher is not someone who's highly qualified, or it's a revolving door for that child, the children are never going to catch up. So investing in our profession is an investment in our students. Respect the profession, better salary, and then better working conditions. I was listening to you this morning. There's some schools that don't have air conditioning. Classrooms, 95 degrees. You know, would you come into a work environment at 95 degrees for 8 hours and be successful? We're expecting our children to do that. We've kind of normalized that. So better working conditions, competitive salaries, a little respect on the profession goes a long way.
So what's the federal government's role in all of that then? Because it sounds like with a lot of these issues, you're talking about state by state, district by district in some cases.
Yes.
So what is the federal government's role when you have, we have a representative in Thomas Massey right across the river who would say we shouldn't have, a U.S. Secretary of Education at all, and all that money should just go locally.
I'm sure that representative appreciates the billions of dollars he gets from the Department of Education to help his kids get tutoring. I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's going to be there at the ribbon cutting when they open up a bridge or do something with the infrastructure plan dollars. But what I'll say, what we're doing, look, I'm a federal Secretary of Education. I was a school principal, I was a district leader, and I was a state leader. The decisions should be made locally. You don't need anybody in DC telling you how to micromanage your schools. You don't. Our job at the federal level is to provide dollars and to provide resources and technical assistance where it's needed. So for example, I talked to you about the Raise the Bar plan. We have resources, we have grants, we have funding that'll help districts that are interested in closing those gaps in reading. When it comes to teacher pay, we have over $3 billion in professional development for teachers in programs that are intended to connect high schools and colleges together so that at the end of that process, those students that were high schoolers become teachers within 5 to 6 years and go back into the districts. So we're helping problem solve with our partners at the state and local level.
I know they're telling me I have to wrap up, but very quickly, I want to ask you one more question since you mentioned higher education. And we've had recent new guidance on affirmative action following the Supreme Court decision. We've still got some loan forgiveness issues out there. Can you speak very quickly to higher education?
We're focusing on fixing a broken system. Higher education right now is not accessible to everyone. We're going to fix that, and we're unapologetic about that. We have too much talent in this country that's going untapped because our higher education system is broken. We're fixing that.
Mr. Secretary, we thank you so much for your time today.
All right, good to see you.
Take care.
Thanks for checking out the Local 12 YouTube channel. Click the links and tap subscribe to get notified anytime we post.